Hey guys, I'm Zach. Welcome back to my garage. Today we have a very special hot rod in here. We have Houchs Hotrods. He built this. I take no credit for it. He did an awesome job. This is a beautiful little banger powered Model T. I love it. It's just my style. I did not build it, so check out Houchs' YouTube channel. I'll put that link down in the description. Basically what we have here is a stock Model A banger. It runs kind of okay. He said it's been running good, then recently it started running bad. So hopefully it's ignition issue. We'll find out as we dig into it. But what we're going to be doing is going from a stock Model A to a downdraft upgraded Distributor 97 carburetor. We're going to make this thing a little bit cooler, a little bit more peppier, and more of its style. The whole car has the perfect hot rod style. We just got to give that hot rod style to the motor, so that's what we're going to work on. Alright, so check it out. That's going to look a lot nicer, right? Then we're also going to be putting on a Lakers style header here, so it should really turn this into a little peppy hot rod. So let's just start with disconnecting our linkages here. We got our throttle linkage. We have what's not really hooked up, but our choke and our ratio here. Then we can go ahead and disconnect our fuel lines and get this intake off of here, because I want to put my header up here, see how it's going to fit with my intake. Then we'll take this old school distributor off, put a new distributor on, so he's not going to have to, when he's racing this, he's not going to have to adjust it on the steering wheel anymore. It's going to self-advance. So he has this valve on here to shut the gas off. We're not going to need that with the 97, but I'm going to leave it on here and use it to my advantage until I'm ready to hook up the new carburetor. So I'm just going to set this off to the side for now and relocate our little fuel regulator and gauge for the new carburetor. It's always a good day when I get to remove a muffler off a flathead Ford. My experience, they hate mufflers. Also, the little teenage kid inside me also hates mufflers. Now this is a good running motor, so we're going to go ahead and take off the intake and exhaust bolts here. It's just 4 studs and nuts, and I'm going to assume that they're going to come out easily. We'll find out. This is a good running engine, or it's been heat cycled recently, so hopefully none of this breaks. Ooh, wow, that was actually looser than you want it to be. Yep, they're all pretty loose. Now I have brand new studs, nuts, and washers for these. So, no worries. See, we had some blow-by on there. Oh yeah, up right in the middle, up at the distributor. So that gasket wasn't working very well. Hopefully the block is good and flush, or flat, because we won't be resurfacing anything. I'm going to go ahead and pull these 2 studs out and completely replace the studs with new ones. And yeah, the thread's a little nasty there anyways. So when I do these, when I take these off, I'm going to be right here. So I don't like wasting time on taking something apart, putting it back together, for a part to be replaced within it later. So while this is off, I'm just going to replace all the studs, nuts, and washers, which is not even that big of a deal. We're talking about like 45 bucks-ish, just to freshen a couple parts up on your motor. I'm going to be using my Eastwood stud puller. Just so you know, if you use this, it will ruin the stud. So let's get these out of there. Coming out very easily, thankfully. Yeah, so on a sitting flathead, you might want to warm these studs up with a torch, let it set, warm them up a couple heat cycles to break everything loose and let it cool down. Then pull them off. On a good running motor that cycles all the time, thankfully it's not that much of a problem. Alright, so now I'm putting in the new studs. I am going to make a header here from scratch. So I am not putting these in officially yet. I'm just putting them in finger tight just so I can get my header plate on here. But when you put these on for real, put NICs on these threads. They are blind holes, so no coolant's gonna leak out of them. So you don't have to worry about that. So the customer brought this header plate and this header kit, so I don't claim to have made any of it, other than I'm gonna piece it together. So we have this plate. It's pretty nice. I had to drill out some of these holes to get it to fit over the studs, but yeah, it's pretty common when these are cut with the plasma cutter. And so this is pretty thick. This is going to work well. And the nicer side out of the two, I'm going to put it against the gasket so we have a good seal. So this slides on here. Tad bit snug, but I like it being snug. Everything lines up pretty decently. And here's what we're going to work with here. So he wanted it below his little emblem here, and he wanted it to point down and out. He doesn't want it to blow on his door, have a big black spot on the door. So we're going to work with something like this. We're going to have this come out. Not really sure. I'm going to obviously cut that down pretty good and get it to turn out this way. So we'll piece this together one part at a time, but let me bolt this down so that it doesn't move around on me. Now it's going to be loud because my welder's on right next to the camera, but this kit only left me with one U-bend, so I don't know what I'm really supposed to do with just one. So I'm going to have one here. Then I'm going to take the other half of that U-bend, cut it in half, give me two 45s, so I can come out straight and come up back over from the intake, because the intake comes straight out. The intake doesn't set up above the header. So we need to get below the intake. So that kind of just leaves me with making these angles right here on the plate. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it doesn't look terrible. I mean, it's a flathead. The internal movement of the exhaust is probably the worst thing in the world, but this being all open with no muffler, I mean, there's not going to be any back pressure at all on this. Tacks on this so it stays in place and I can keep working my way back. Alright, we got the header all made up and it's ready to go. It's upstairs. I painted it with high temp paint. So while that's drying, we'll replace the distributor and get that ready to go. These can get stuck in the head. So every time I replace the distributor, I also replace the shaft because they do have problems with rusting, corroding, issues like that. So hopefully this one will come off okay. We'll see how it works. Thankfully it was not. Yep, that's why we always replace them. Look how nasty that is. So here's our new intermediate shaft. Nice, clean, ready to go. Super cheap. Just replace it every time you do a distributor. And then here's our new distributor. It's electronic. It's self-advancing. We don't have to mess with the steering wheel anymore. Definitely a lot better for racers. In my opinion, it's better for racers anyways. And I got this distributor from Vintage Auto Garage. They actually sell a lot of really good ignition products, so check them out. Alright, so let's go ahead and install our new distributor, our new intermediate rod. And admittedly, I didn't record this. Before taking this apart, I cranked the motor over until it pointed at #1 cylinder. So when I go to put this distributor in, I make sure it's pointing at the #1 cylinder. So let's see, and hopefully our shaft doesn't need to be shortened. A lot of the aftermarket shafts need to be shortened. So make sure that that shaft goes down there and actually locks in place on the notch down here. Otherwise it will be too long and it won't do anything for you. So that's all the way down and it's locked in. Now let's make sure we point this at #1 when it's installed. Now, what you need to do before you get carried away, actually, I'm going to change where #1 is. I want my wires to be back here. Great thing about a distributor, it doesn't really care where it's at. There we go. Awesome. Wires are pointed to the back. I got this where I want it. Sweet. Okay. So now, of course, make sure you're at top dead center. So when you put the cap on, and we put it on to #1, so this is going to be #1 here, that you know what your timing is going to be roughly. Then you're going to have to run it and adjust your timing, of course, just like in the other motor. So now what I'm going to do is find a good way to hook up our distributor. I'm going to replace this coil with Vintage Auto Garage's epoxy filled coil. So what's great about the epoxy filled coil, you can actually mount it upside down without worrying about oil getting out of it. So we have a ballast resistor and a wire coming from the ignition. So I'm able to cut some of these wires. We will no longer need the ballast resistor with the coil that we have, and we don't need it with the Pertronics that's inside the distributor. So all this is going to work out, and we're going to be able to clean up the firewall some. Now this little adjustment screw here is what locks the distributor in place. Do not mistake it for a screw that really needs to be tightened down. All we want to do is tighten it to where the distributor will not spin. So let's put our cap on here so this gets out of my way. So there's our cap. There's a bunch of timing we can put into it. Now this screw, make sure you screw this in to where this will not spin. If you screw it in really tight, it'll actually mess up the distributor itself. That's with the original Model A's and the aftermarket distributors. So I'm going to take a little flathead screwdriver, make sure it's snug, and I'm going to tighten that down. So here we have is our Vintage Auto Garage coil. Love this thing, mounted in any direction. Since it's full of epoxy and not oil, we can mount it upside down and not worry about anything leaking out. And this is going to look nice sitting on this firewall. Alright guys, so if you didn't already know, to find top dead center for cylinder #1 on a Model A is extremely easy. What we're going to do is pull this screw out. We're going to flip this around. And this should actually set and lock into the timing gear on a notch where top dead center is. So this is a good motor, so I'm just going to reach down here and spin it with my hand until I find top dead center. Cylinder #1, it's going to pop right in. Alright, now we're installing these studs in for real. Put a little AICs on the threads, we're going to double nut it, and we're going to tighten it up with the wrench. Doesn't have to be very tight. think it's like 8 to 10 foot-pounds, something like that. But we're just really just going to get it snugged up. Okay. Double nut it and take the double nuts back off. Alright, I got this carburetor from Houchs Hotrods. It is a 81. So it already has, it says 97 on the side, but it's 81. And it already has what we need for this smaller motor. If you put a 97, you're going to have to jet it down a lot. If you put an 81, you're a lot closer to the ballpark. We could put a bigger cam and still run the 81, or we can have a stock motor and run the 81 with smaller jets. So keep that in mind. Also, a lot of people don't think that the 97s and 81s have a power valve, but they do. Make sure you keep that in mind on power valve size also with a smaller motor like this. Now, I've been playing with some linkage here to get it right. So don't be afraid to put an S-bend in it. I put an S-bend down here to get around header and to line it up better. Then I'm probably going to put an S-bend in up here so it's not crooked, so it can come on straight. After I get that set up, we'll move up here and put some spark plug wires in. Now the firing order is 1, 2, 4, 3. This is cylinder 1, so 1, 2, 4, 3. Alright guys, so here we are. I kind of ran out of time. This was a quick turnaround type deal, and I didn't get to a couple things that I really wanted to clean up, like the fuel line. I didn't get to clean that up, just ran out of time. Kind of frustrating, but it doesn't look that bad. Houchs Hotrods, they're pretty good. They build some killer cars, so I have no doubt that they'll clean that up and make that look really, really nice. So I drove it around the block in the dark. It definitely has a lot of pep back in its step. This definitely increased the horsepower for it. No doubt the Model A Distributor and the stock Model A carb, it runs good when you like a tractor. But if you like a race car, something that self-advances, a carburetor that's a little bit more controlled, that definitely gives you a lot more control of the motor, air-fuel ratio, all that kind of good stuff. So we just need to keep a close eye on the color of the spark plugs. It needs drive time. Once you get some time in the seat, some drives in it, pull the plugs back out, read the plugs, and determine if the jets need to go up, down, or if we need to put a little bit more timing in it or not. I messed with the timing a lot. Drove it, timed it, and got it to where I liked it. I'm doing this all in the dark, so I didn't really get to film any of that. Hopefully, when they come pick this car up, we go for a cruise in it. Hopefully, they can film me driving, or I can film them driving, so you guys can get some driving content. But I think it sounds a lot meaner with the Legster header. It doesn't have a Legster muffler in it, which I think they probably might end up doing in the long run. It's up to them, but that little helps with a little bit of the pops and bangs when you deaccelerate. You definitely get all of that now because there's no muffler, and it's all real hot right there together, so it's going to detonate in the Legster. So that's just, it is what it is. That's totally race car. It's up to them if they want to keep that or not. But this thing's got more power. It's more of a hot rod, and I can't wait for you guys to see it out in one of the vintage drag races. So be on the lookout for this car. Thank you guys for watching my videos, all the awesome comments. And this wasn't as much as a how-to tutorial as in just let's hang out and work on hot rods. So thanks guys. Go out in your garage and get your shift together.